Shalom Aleichem, Red Babs.
Shalom, shalom. All right, I'm going to send the link to some other people. I'll send it to Doovid. Um, how are you doing tonight, Judas?
I'm sad because I went on J Swipe for like a day, and I went through a bunch of women that were like modestly dressed, and like I get no matches and I get no chats at all. I've been on it for like 24 hours.
I'm sorry. Yeah, it's unforgiving.
Why is this typical?
Oh yeah, I mean, J Swipe is pretty. Women get pretty choosy on there. I mean, I didn't have like all the necessary job information. I wasn't like a sugar daddy, so I didn't get swiped back.
Yeah,
They're
is
looking
it?
for like they're
Jewish
looking
women
for
just want
dude.
sugar daddies?
They're looking for quote unquote stable men, aka rich men, or at least upper middle class income pulling men. They're looking for someone who earns minimum 100K a year, ideally more like 200 or 300K.
Yeah, my sister was talking. I went to dinner with my sister tonight. We had a great time, and she said that she said I shouldn't get married. She said I should just not get married and enjoy life. Pretty much like do the look forward experience.
But you need to sow your seeds.
No, it's selling my soul, man.
No.
It's the birthright. Like you know how Jones Gary he always talks about the birthright with the red lentil soup. This is the red lentil soup. The immodest
Nice.
one, the modest woman, she's the lentil soup. Are you gonna sell it?
Yeah. Yeah. Should I? Maybe. Should I wear these glasses? I hear it brings out my Jewishness.
Yeah, you should look very Jewy. My emo is upset at me.
Get back in bed, Judas. Get back to sleep, Judas. Ema. So this is the
Hold on,
Babs.
take my meds.
This is the Babs stream with Judas. Judas is taking his whatever you have atypical
Yeah,
antipsychotic.
I have.
What
I
did
have
they
to
what did
take.
they
I have
pump
to
you
take.
full?
I have to
Did
turn
they
off
pump you full of atypical
my cam before
antipsychotics?
I take my meds for my
Do
mom.
they pump you full of atypical antipsychotics and mood suppressors?
My mom gives me dopamine regulators. That's all.
Dopamine Do you get more dopamine from them or less? How do they regulate it?
It keeps me steady and they help me sleep at night, so that's why I take it.
Yeah, what you want is one that gives you more dopamine, but usually these medications give you less.
Well, I've been taking these dopamine regulators that my mom got me from the psychiatrist, and they've just for the last like 18 months or something, and they've been working just fine.
Dude, the Babsian dynasty, we used to be kangs, but now we've been reduced to ashes. How do you feel about that, Judas? Your house is
Are we
bigger than
live?
mine. Yeah, we're live, Judas. Is that bad? I can delete the part where your ema got mad at you.
Oh no, it's fine. It's good for
No, dude,
attention.
yeah, dude, it is good for attention. It's like IRL streaming. What would be better is if we could have someone donating you super chat money, so it would play like loud noise, like loud text to speech with Iranian translation, Persian, Judeo-Persian, Judeo-Tat translation.
Yeah, it's getting comfortable.
Judas, you need to look as Jewy as possible right now.
I'm gonna wear my tunic and my Nazi robe.
It's time for good optics.
Babs, you need to find me a GF, a religious, a Dati GF.
I can do the former, but not the latter.
Listen, maybe I can work with that. Maybe I can like convince you to like become more modest. No, the thing is, I have an idea for a movie.
I can find you a degenerate white chick.
I guess I don't know. I think I want the red lentil soup. So, The movie idea is called the Shomer Girlfriend Experiment. You know, it's gonna be a mockumentary where we get like a Dati affiliated chick to be my dating coach, and we're gonna talk about like yichud, like what yichud is, and we're gonna get like a real like Chabad rabbi. What do you think of that idea?
Dude, I feel like this is good, but to market it to like secular Jews who don't really understand these concepts, and even to like non-Jews, dude. But I think that dude, but we need to explain these concepts. You can't just throw them around. Basically, like it's a Jewish dating coach for incels who can't get married, is what we're talking about, correct?
Yeah, can you find one?
But like in the context of like a trad religious society.
What does trad religious mean? I don't know what that means.
Like a religious traditional society that does arranged marriages and shidduch dating and and no sex outside marriage, stuff like that. Modesty,
Yeah,
humility before God. Right. Judas, if one generation gives a lot of charity, can the next generation take it easy?
No. If anything, they have to double what they're doing.
See, it's that type of mentality that made my family go broke by giving it all to freaking charities.
Instead of giving money to Jewish causes, they need to become Orthodox.
Now your family's house is bigger than mine because of that idea. See, look at this house. Dude, look at this house. This house is smaller than the one you live in. Dude, now we are broker than you, Judas, because we followed that policy, and now we can't give any more to Jewish charities. How do you feel about that?
You need to become.
You siphoned it away.
Has to start covering her hair. She needs to start wearing a long skirt. She needs to get a legitimate Orthodox rabbi. She needs to email Rabbi Avraham Union of the RCC of the Rabbinical Council of California. You can find his email on Google. And she needs to get connected, and you need to get her the book. She needs to read the book and apply the book, Modesty and Adornment for Life. She needs to start keeping that. And if she needs to only marry Jewish, and she has to go to get to the mikvah if she gets married. And she has to keep kosher Shabbat and get a filter on her internet. You need to become Orthodox too, bro.
Put a filtrum on my internet? I already have a big enough filtrum.
All right. No, you need a porn blocker, dude. Everyone's required to have a porn blocker.
Why do I need one? I have zero desire to watch porn.
No, you still need one. It's like you're secluded with a woman. You're not allowed to be secluded with a woman.
Dude, whatever. I mean, I don't go to the. Dude, I don't browse.
No, don't do this whatever shit with me.
No, I'm just saying. I installed the app that you told me to watch, and literally it hasn't made a difference because I don't go to frickin' Chans and other websites where they have like little animated ads, showing like frickin' sex.
How is it gonna look to the goyim? How is it gonna look to the religious girls when they find out you don't have a filter? How's it gonna look? Exactly.
Dude, I do have a filter.
How's it gonna look when you take your phone to the Best Buy?
I have covenant eyes. I have covenant eyes because you told me to get.
Are you serious?
Yeah, dude. I got it like many streams ago. We've been over this.
Damn, dude. Have you experienced a flow of money flow in your life since then?
No, but I got a new job and I'm doing an investment banking internship.
Oh, there you go. It works.
No, it's not good because I read the descriptions and apparently I'm basically going to be someone's bitch all summer. But it means I might be able to get some good connections out of it. So you'll see. We'll see.
I want to get some red pilling information.
Dude, I had some like mysterious signs lately coming from God.
What? Tell me about it.
Or maybe it's coming from Satan, dude. I don't know.
I can't identify it for you. Dude, I want to do something called BTFO Jones Very or Revelation 4:7.
Dude, I sent him the link. Send him the link.
I want to blood sport with him. I want to read this about Jesus. This is from Miraculous Journey. This is a book. It this is a history book approved by Haredi rabbis. So this is page 79. This is about Yeshu. Yeshu is what Jews call Jesus. When viewed in Jewish terms, Yeshu, or Jesus, the central personality in the Christian religion, is a figure shrouded in much doubt and uncertainty. His story comes mainly from Christian writings, which themselves were not based on eyewitness accounts, but instead were legends recorded by people who lived generations after the event supposedly took place. Indeed, all reference to Yeshu and Josephus, a contemporary historian, are viewed by many scholars as Christian interpolations. According to the Christians, Yeshu was born in 4 BCE and died in 29 CE after the Jews delivered him to the Romans for execution. Talmudic sources also refer to a person called Yeshu. However, there are many differences between Yeshu in the Talmud and Yeshu in Christianity. First, the Talmud says that the Sanhedrin killed him, whereas Christians say the Jews delivered him to the Romans, who then put him to death. Second, according to Christian sources, Yeshu was crucified, which is not and never has been one of the modes of execution mandated by Jewish law. Third, the Torah states that Yeshu was close to the political regime, while Christians believe that the government despised him, considering him an outsider. Fourth, Christians say Yeshu was tried on the eve of Pesach and executed on Pesach, with the so-called Last Supper being a Pesach Seder. However, the Talmud writes that because trials may not be held on the eve of a festival and executions may not be carried out on a festival itself, Yeshu was actually executed before Pesach. Fifth, Talmud sources place Yeshu at the time of Yahushua ben Perechia, who lived at least 130 years before the time of the Christian Yeshu's supposed birth. Based on the evidence, then, it appears that there is no record of the Christian Jesus in either Jewish or secular contemporary sources. Further, the Christian belief that the Jews are eternally cursed for their complicity in Jesus' death is recorded in their Bible and is the basis of Christian anti-Semitism. Countless numbers of innocent Jews have been massacred for this supposed crime in the last 2,000 years, most recently during the Holocaust, which could not have been possible without centuries of built-up Christian hatred of Jews. Although the Pope
Tell him, Judas. Tell him.
The Pope recently absolved the Jews for the death of the Christian God, and the myth of Jewish complicity is still widely believed among Christians. Indeed, every 10 years, the Oberamagra, Passion Play, a major tourist attraction, is performed in Germany. The story of Jesus' trial and execution is reenacted with spectacular acting and pageantry, including the statement from the book of Matthew attributed to the Jews that, quote, his blood be on us and on our children, end quote. All told, no single person has ever caused as much suffering to the Jewish nation as the man upon whom the Christian religion is based.
You tell him, Judas. Judas, where do you think Jesus is right now?
He's burning in feces in hell.
Is that the mainstream rabbinical interpretation?
It's because he made fun of the rabbis. Because he made fun of the rabbis. That's why Jones very needs to delete all the streams, or else he's going to burn in hell for eternity.
All right. Do you have a response, Melky Zedek? It would be nice if Melky could come on, but it's quiet hours in the house. Wouldn't it be funny if he snuck out to the bathrooms and started streaming like I do? That'd be great. So, Judas, have you noticed that I haven't cut my beard in months? Over a month?
Yeah, it looks nice.
Yeah, dude. This is how a true Hebrew is supposed to look.
Seriously. Look at my beard.
Yeah, talk more about Jesus. Should trigger the people in the chat. Let's get lots of downvotes.
Let me find more stuff about. I want to find more stuff about Christianity and like Jewish. Hold on. This. Oh, the Protestant Reformation. Okay, this is page 219, the book Miraculous Journey, by Rabbi Yosef Eisen, and it's approved. Has a letter of approbation from leading Haredi rabbis.
By the way, Melky is letting us know Christianity welcomes everybody, so it's not too late.
Melchizedek is just some LARPer. The Protestant Reformation. Martin Luther, who lived in the 1500s and sparked the movement against the Catholic Church that resulted in the Protestant Reformation, started out friendly to the Jewish people, hoping to attract Jews to his new brand of Christianity. Luther stated that the Catholics' mistreatment of the Jews was a crime against God's chosen people. However, when Luther realized that Jews would not become Lutherans, he reversed himself and spewed forth foul anti-Semitic venom. Luther's statement, the quote, "The Jews are our pests and misfortune," end quote, was copied almost verbatim by the Nazis. He recommended, first, to set fire to their synagogues or schools. Second, I advise that their houses also be razed and destroyed. Third, all their prayer books and Talmudic writings in which such lies, cursing, and blasphemy are taught be taken from them. Fourth, I advise that their rabbis be forbidden to teach. Fifth, I advise that safe conduct on the highways be abolished completely for the Jews. Sixth, I advise that all cash and treasure of silver be taken from them. Seventh, let whoever can throw brimstone and pitch upon them. Let them be driven like mad dogs out of the land. Some historians are convinced that Martin Luther, considered the first great national prophet of Germany, not only outdid all previous Christian anti-Semites, but also in his outbursts of hatred, it was the first major step to the Holocaust. At the Nuremberg trials 1946, for example, Julius Streicher, the editor of the vicious anti-Semitic newspaper Der Stürmer, stated that if he is on trial, then Martin Luther
Didn't
should
Luke
also...
Ford stream with him once?
Then Martin Luther should also be in the dock with him. Indeed, reading Luther's diatribes against the Jews is difficult not to agree with Streicher. To its credit, in 1994, the Lutheran Church repudiated Luther's anti-Semitic words, calling them false. They cucked. They cucked. They
So
they cucked on their release.
Melky.
Comment to Jewish people.
Okay. Easy on the maniacal laughter, Judas. All right. Some people have eardrums in the audience, that haven't been completely blown out by listening to bassy dub stuff like John Harris. So let's see. Melchizedek says, "I wish I didn't love this stuff. Me loving this is just a sad sin against my Lord. What it is that you're a masochist, like most Christians." Subtly, subconsciously, that's what my mom always says, is like Christianity, she is this weird, like semi-sexual fetishistic obsession with like death and suffering and bodily mutilation and pain and like physical suffering and torture. And my mom is like, oh my gosh, like they actually think they're eating the blood and the bones of Christ. She thinks it's like this weird, like kind of strict, semi parafetishistic kind of obsession with like pain and physical torture and like bodily suffering. And that's like strange and pathological, and that she thinks Judaism, at least, is a much normal religion because it's like a religion of life as opposed to a religion that's so much one of like death and suffering. She's like, they literally wear devices of torture and execution around their necks. Just think about that for a second. She says stuff like that.
Yeah, I'm looking for this. I'm looking for this stuff about the Holocaust.
All right, keep looking. Oh, in the meantime, I'll just read.
Experience. Barbaric German. This is page 467. Barbaric German doctors conducted horrific medical experiments on hapless Jews. Dr. Mengele sterilized thousands of women and conducted tests of dubious scientific value on twins and dwarfs. Fascinated with eye color, Mengele attempted to turn children's eyes blue by injecting them most painfully with ethylene dye. When the experiment did not work, as it never did, the children were gassed. In his laboratory, an entire wall was lined with human eyes, classified by color, from pale yellow to bright violet, pinned like butterflies. To test the effects of altitude on pilots, Jewish inmates were put into high-pressure chambers until their lungs burst. Others were frozen, determined the best way to revive frozen German soldiers. Inmates were injected with virus to test new drugs. In Ravensbrück transplantation experiments, the bones of Polish women were removed from their bodies. Newborn babies were starved to death. That's the story of the Holocaust.
What are your thoughts on Christianity? Just talk about Christianity off the cuff for the next 5 minutes or so. I'm going to make myself something to eat.
New Testament belongs in garbage. The rabbi of my synagogue once said that the New Testament is garbage. Yeah, the New Testament really is garbage. is just a book written by people who want to fulfill their lusts.
Elaborate.
Like they just want to party, you know. So like they latch onto Jesus because they think like Jesus was this like party guy, or like he was okay with them being
Party guy.
sluts
Yeah, Jesus was a party guy.
and looking, looking
John
at
Harris
porn.
says,
They think their God will forgive them for looking at porn because like he died for
they
them or
do.
whatever.
I didn't know that about Christians, but
Yeah,
John,
Christians all
I
look at
thought
porn.
they're against that. I didn't know. I thought they were
They
against
are,
that.
but they do it anyway because they're hypocritical and they're lazy and they don't want to get a filter.
Yeah. Yeah, John Harris says in the chat, Bab's mom has a Judeo-centric view of Christianity. It's more like your friends celebrating your friend getting blown up by a grenade to save you and your family, and he did it voluntarily. Lucky ZX says, I think you mentioned it just a bit recently, but otherwise, no. Masochism kind of makes sense. We want to be humiliated like Jesus. John Harris says, I think it's a Nietzschean view of Christianity. I reject it and think it's all about something.
All right, I want to show you. I want to read some beautiful words to you now.
All right. In the meantime, I'd like you to talk about your experiences with
Dude, I'm
Christians in
being
your life.
watched by Jones Very.
Yeah, we know.
I'm on
What are
TV,
you,
guys.
dude? What are your experiences like in your life with Christians?
I have nothing to do with the goyim. I really have nothing to do with goyim other than the ones I deal with for my.
Have you ever met a Christian?
I go to the West Side Regional Center. It's like they help me with my autism. I'm gonna take an internship there to help build up my portfolio.
Your
Okay.
what portfolio? You're volunteering for Jewish charities portfolio.
This book is for my resume. Look at this. This is the way Orchot Tzaddikim, the ways of Tzaddikim. This is a very important Jewish book.
Judas, how much money would it take for you to drop everything and relocate for a new life? How much money?
I can't handle that lifestyle, dude. It's not gonna work.
I'm just wondering. I was thinking of some cruel experiments I could play. Read the article.
Okay, this is what I'm read. This is the Feldheim edition of the Ways of the Tzaddikim, page 395.
Judas, are we allowed to listen to music again since Passover ended?
Yeah, don't turn any music. Put on nature sounds.
But are we allowed to listen to music?
No, we're not allowed to listen to music.
We still have the ban?
Talk to your rabbi.
Talk to my rabbi. All right. Dude, my rabbi is a Reform rabbi.
No, stop going to him. Cut off all contact with him. Get an Orthodox rabbi.
Okay.
What is this shit?
Dude, I told you my family goes to a pretty big Reform.
You need to break the cycle and we'll go Orthodox only.
Dude, it's hard to even convince my mom to go to the Reform synagogue.
I know, because your mom, she has this very strong foreskin on her heart that she has you.
Heart, yeah. Hoshi Ani, help me, save me. It's the mystery of the goy's teeth.
She has
Hoshi Ani.
She has an uncircumcised. She has an uncircumcised spirit. So this is the gate of truth, the 23rd gate. Truth. The soul is created from the place of the Holy Spirit, the Ruach HaKodesh, as is written in verse 7, quote, and he breathes into his nostrils the soul of life, end quote. It is hewn from a place of purity and created from the celestial radiance from the throne of glory, and there is no falsehood above in the place of the Holy of Holies, but all is truth, as is written in Jeremiah chapter 10, verse 10, quote, and Hashem God is truth. End quote. I have found it written in Exodus chapter 3, verse 14, quote, I will be what I will be, Eheyeh asher Eheyeh. And chapter 10, verse 10, quote, and Hashem God is truth. He is the living God and the eternal King, end quote. Derived from this that God, the Holy One, blessed be He, is truth, is Emet. For the word whose gematria numerical equivalent is 21, is found 21 times. 21 multiplied by 21 equals Emet, truth. And the gematria of the word Eheyeh itself is 21, so that Eheyeh, asher Eheyeh, being understood as a compounding of Eheyeh, would in fact give the same result. God made man to be just, as we learn in Ecclesiastes chapter 7, verse 29, and in Shabbat chapter page 50, in Tractate Shabbat chapter page 55, side A, quote, "The seal of the Holy One, blessed be He, is Emet, truth." And it's written in Psalms chapter 101, verse 7, quote, "The speaker of falsehoods will not be established before my eyes," end quote. When one occupies himself with truth, falsehood does not cleave to truth. And where there is truth, it is as if he has habitation in heaven were suspended over men. For when there is truth in men, they acknowledge that he made heaven and earth, the seas and all that is in them, as written in Psalms chapter 146, verse 6. Quote, "He makes heaven and earth, the sea and all that is in them," end quote. Immediately followed by, quote, "He guards the truth forever," end quote. And where there is truth, it is as if his habitation is not in the heaven and the earth. One who merits reflecting upon these things, upon the souls being hewn from the source of truth, will conduct all of his affairs in truth, and not bring falsehood into the place of holiness of truth. This is the intent of Psalms chapter 145, verse 18, quote, "Hashem is close to all those who call to him, to all those who call to him in Emet, with truth. For the Holy One, blessed be He, who is truth, draws near to all who call upon him in truth." And what is meant by calling upon God in truth? Freeing one's heart of everything in the world and drawing near to the Holy One, blessed be He alone, so that one's intellect grows stronger in its cleaving to the celestial radiance, and one's mind yearns constantly for Him. One can attain to this only by secluding himself within his room, and for this reason, all who will be saintly should cultivate separation and seclusion, and join the company of men only when there is great need to do so. But if one prays by moving his lips and face before the wall, thinking of his affairs, calling upon him with his tongue, his heart occupied with household matters, or he thinks to derive honor by virtue of his pleasant voice, to find favor in the eyes of men and be praised by them, then his divine service is not true, and he is in the class of those of whom is written in Jeremiah chapter 12, verse 2, quote, "You are close in their mouths, but far from their reins," end quote. Therefore we pray, "V'tahar l'beinu lavdechabem," and purify our hearts to serve you with emet, with truth, that we perform our divine service truthfully, that we believe with a perfect heart and a willing spirit, and that we not serve for the sake of people, money, or exaltation. This is the intent of Job chapter 22, verse 23, quote, "If you return unto the Almighty, you will be rebuilt," end quote. That is, if you return to the Almighty, there being no foreign thought intervening between yourself and the Almighty, then you will be rebuilt mightily in the radiance of the Shekhinah. And this was King David's intent in Psalms chapter 15, verses 1 to 2. Quote, "O Hashem, who will abide in your tent? Who will dwell on your holy mountain? He who walks uprightly and performs righteousness and speaks the truth in his heart," end quote. Reflect upon, quote, "and he speaks the truth in his mouth," end quote. It is not written, "speaks the truth with his mouth." The heart being that truth must be implanted and fixed in a man's heart. Therefore, the early saints, when they made a sale, would sell the object to the buyer for the price they had decided upon in their hearts. And as we learn in the Talmud in Makot, chapter page 24, side A, and Bava Batra, page 88, side A. And even if the buyer was prepared to give more, they refused to take more than they had agreed upon in their hearts. The English person who follows this course to speak the truth in his heart is if he is taking upon himself in his thoughts to do something, he should write down, lest he forget it, and violate his thought. And if he cannot abide by his thought, he should go to a sage to absolve him of what he in his heart, though he did not utter it with his mouth. And it was best that he stipulates himself that his thoughts not be binding so as long as he not utters them with his mouth. If one speaks the truth in his heart and does not want to think falsehood, even without intending to act upon it, all of his words and thoughts will be fulfilled, as written in Job chapter 22, verse 28, quote, "And you will decree a word, and it will be established for you," end quote. And one who is a man of truth in all of his dealings, both in trading and in lending, will always state that his final figure in the very beginning, so that all those who deal with him will know that he will not change it, then that he will not go up or down. The sage has said, quote, "Always put the truth in front of you," end quote. That is, one should make signs for himself in doing business to remember not to put this down in writing and produce what he has written and scan it before he enters upon his transactions. And he should do likewise in his study hall upon his lectern, that he remember and not speak falsely, so that he not forget to speak the truth. A certain person wrote upon the walls of his house and on the wall of his study hall, Quote, remember the day of death and do not sin. One who speaks only the truth will live and prolong his days and be saved, as we learn from the Talmud. This is Jeremiah chapter 10, verse 10, quote, Hashem God is truth, he is living God and the eternal King, end quote. If one speaks only the truth, he will be saved all the days of his life, as written in Malachi chapter 2, verses 6 to 7, quote, the Torah of truth was in his mouth, and wrong was not found upon his lips, for he is an angel of Hashem of hosts, end quote. The celestial angels are the truths are generated by them as by the sun. The souls are embodied, and therefore the hidden matters are known to them. But slightly and in the visions of the night, when the souls are in the affairs of the body, as will be testified by those conversing with the ways of the soul. Dreams are of the natures of one's thoughts, as is written in Daniel chapter 2, verse 29, quote, your thoughts, meaning your dreams, arose upon your bed, end quote. As we learn, as it's interpreted by the Talmud in Tractate Berachot, page 55, side B. Dreams come through the angel that accompanies a man, and because not all thoughts are true, therefore, not all dreams are true. And if one habituates himself that all of his thoughts are true, then at night, too, he will see visions and he will know the future just as the angels do. There is no quality greater than speaking the truth, to wit, as we learn in Psalms chapter 119, verse 160, quote, the crown of your word is truth, end quote. Let's read that. Rosh devarecha emet. That's how you say it in Hebrew. And
I appreciate that. Go ahead.
Yeah, say your thing.
No, just I appreciate the handpicked verse. I can tell that this is aimed at me. My pleasant voice and whatever won't save me. I'm not stupid, Judas. I mean, I know you give me the handpicked verses. I like it though. It's interesting. Judas, by the way, do you know what this is? Judas, do you know what this is?
It's a golem. It says Emet on it.
Yeah, this is. I thought this was topical.
You know what? My Hebrew name is Matityahu, and Emet is actually a acronym for Matityahu. Look, it has Mem and Tav, Matityahu, and Aleph in the Midrash. The Midrash says, and I can bring it up. The Midrash says that the letter
we're making
Aleph
some gematrionic connections. Connections.
It's supposed to be the Yud K Vav K. You're familiar with that? It's like the Yud and the K, the Vav and the Yud. Yud K Vav K. So yeah, Emet is Matityahu means Emet in Gematria language. Is that interesting?
Yeah, that is interesting. What do you think of it, Judas? You like it? This is the goyim in our hands.
Where'd you get it?
My mother got it for me. She was at a conference in Prague.
It was very nice of your mother to purchase that for you.
Yeah, I know. What do you think? What does that mean?
Dude, since we're on the subject, hold up. All right, you brought the golem, so I'm going to read you my material I have on the golem.
No, but Judas, I hope I didn't interrupt what you were saying before. But Judas, do you notice that?
Yeah, you should. Yeah, when you do streams with me, wear a kippah.
I think, yeah, dude. I think that when I look like I look right now, it wouldn't even surprise people if I was wearing a kippah. You know, I look so Jewish.
Because the thing is, like, it's so. Dude, you should totally start wearing a kippah.
Dude, how would people react? It would be crazy, dude. Dude, I think women would stop like coming up to me as much and like shit like that. Like it would.
Yeah,
like, women would regard me like this is a modest man. They would be like, this is a modest man. I think it would also like add questions when. Dude, I feel like I would like act more modestly too. Like stop like trying to. Like,
you'll stop going to these goy. You need to stop going to like these concerts.
Dude, it would make me stop doing goy things. You're right.
Are
like if I was wearing a yarmulke, I would
you
stop
need
doing
to like
goy
get
things.
out of this social media shit and just live a modest life and not be in the forefront and stop getting into politics and call off this stupid movement of yours.
Dude, I don't have a movement.
Dude, you have Haredi, dude. Just watch. You know the anglerfish. You know how like anglerfish, like there's the male anglerfish
I
and like
have
attached.
a movement of
Haredi
306
Judaism.
disparate anonymous people who don't agree with me.
Haredi Judaism is the female anglerfish.
Yeah, why does that sound good? I don't want to latch into some
Listen,
woman
man.
and have her control my
Listen,
life.
our
Dude,
women, our women,
because dude, my dad and my mom
Orthodox
like
women.
had that dynamic and it was really toxic. You know that,
Listen
you
to
know.
me. Orthodox women who keep the dress code and all the halachas. They're something special.
Dude, is
They're
this good?
gems.
Is this a
Stop
goy
being so
voodoo?
picky about looks.
Check out this goy voodoo doll. Dude, it has nothing to do with looks. You don't understand. These Haredi women don't
You
come from,
want a
dude, they
modest
come
woman,
from a
you
different
really have
social,
to.
stop. People in my social class don't marry uneducated Haredi Jew. I'm sorry. like, they're usually not as high IQ.
That makes me sad, but yeah, it's true.
Dude, you know that's true, dude.
I know it's
I don't know
true.
why. Like, are they're like kind of autistic?
Yeah, the women like I have dude, my community, they wouldn't let me they wouldn't invite me to homes with people my age, and people my age weren't even interested in connecting with me at all because I don't go to university and don't have a job, so like they were like they didn't like me, and
Judas.
yeah, and my friend he got the same trick. We made the mistake of asking to be invited to meals. Hold up.
Iman needs me. Iman needs me. I don't know. Iman needs me. See, like when people are like PDD, NOS, or autistic, or Spurgs, or pretend to be like Judas, they have like this kind of like inattentive, whiny voice where it's like they put zero effort into like any like I put like low effort, like maybe like 5% or something like that. But some people they put like zero effort into their talking and they don't really like sort of like they just kind of like whatever, dude. Like they are. It's like a monotone. It's like droning. So I don't know. Welcome, Doovid. How are you doing? We were actually just reading some Talmud. We were talking about, yeah, I mean, Judas can fill you in, and we were about to talk about golems. But what's on your mind?
I'm in the middle of a game of chess.
Wonderful.
But yeah, a lot of things are on my mind. I stream with Church of Entropy for hours, like 4 hours. It was interesting. I'm scheduled with Halsey tomorrow night on the shooting and guns and security in synagogues.
That's I'm looking forward to seeing that stream. I think that's going to be great. It's like my favorite anime crossovers, the two worlds colliding. Like yeah, Halsey and Doovid. I think that's going to be awesome.
I'm about to finish this guy off with a game of chess. He's just too slow.
Oof.
He might be.
He's too slow for you.
He's actually a stronger player than me. He's actually a national master, but he's just too slow. I was thinking that with that guy.
Babs, look at my book.
Daniel Sanklowitz, who's like kind of a slow speaker.
Yeah,
Magic,
he reminds me of myself. I think that he's smart, but I think he's got slow processing speed. Like I just saw my Wechsler's intelligence test from when I was really young, and I'm 80 something percent. I'm in the 13th percentile for processing speed, which means I'm really slow. And I was wondering why that could be at such a young age. And some theories are because I didn't get enough omega-3s, because I was vegetarian and vegan for a lot of the early part of my life, although it could just be because I'm naturally slow. So that's really interesting. So yeah, sometimes like speed really matters, and there is definitely such thing as being slow. So yeah, I think
The yarmulke on your head?
yeah. I decided to put it on because I figured like I was already looking like so Jewish, like right, the beard and everything. Like might as well, like honestly, and especially considering like I've been trying to be more observant in areas of my life, just like small things at a time. It's like might as well. And also, Judas wants to stream on a channel where I have a yarmulke on. So yeah, I figured why not? And I think I might just wear it out tonight and maybe to work tomorrow.
Orthodox.
Embrace it.
It's his neshama needs him to be Orthodox, you guys. Like, you don't understand. Hashem loves Babs so much because he's Jewish. Babs is Hashem's firstborn and only son. So as are you, Doooovid, as I am Emet, and Halsey, and all the other Jews on the stream. We are Hashem's firstborn.
Yes.
And we're not only are we Hashem's firstborn, we're his only child. Each of us, each Hebrew, each individual Hebrew is Hashem's only child.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that's correct. If all humanity is
that's what I asked my Orthodox rabbi, and he, Rabbi Avigdor Miller said, as one of his books, he said that I know that's just a rumor now. It's just a rumor now because there's some guy on the internet. But he did say that they are not Hashem's children. We are Hashem's children. They are Hashem's servants.
I'm not sure.
Spoke Rabbi Miller.
It's
there. It's on record. It's in there.
You have to give me a quote and source for that. I
know. I have to. I'm sorry. I don't have it. But that is what he said. You have to find someone who's like very learned in his stories. Good luck with that.
Be more careful with a statement like that unless you're sure.
Well, I am very comfortable saying that that the Goyim are not Hashem's children. They're just his employees.
Yeah, but you might be comfortable lying, comfortable saying false things, saying something.
Other Rabbi, you have to show me a proof that the Goyim are Hashem's children.
The word children, obviously when God creates man, God says it's good.
So you have a good employee, you have a good servant, you have a good slave. And you care about your servant, you care about your slave, and you care about your employee. But it's not your employee, it's not your child.
Yeah,
you have certain. I guess you can say you have certain. You could say kavod yochel. You have certain obligations to your servant that are determined by natural law. But at the end of the day, it's just a servant.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm saying that the Torah employs.
Well, I need to see. I was never. No rabbi has ever told me that Hashem loves our Hashem is views the Goyim as his children. I always hear we are banim atem l'Shem Elokechem. We are Hashem's children, but I never heard any of this stuff about the Goyim being Hashem's children. No, honestly, I've been 26 years old. I've lived in the Persian Jewish community my whole life. I've been going to synagogues with Haredi rabbis my whole life. I've studied on, or Haredi Siddharim, and I never heard I never heard any of this stuff about, Hashem having the same level of affection for the Goyim as he does for Yidden.
That could be what I'm saying. My nafkamina, what's the difference? And if you're so certain about that, are you really so certain about that? And if you're wrong, is it worth saying something like that where it may not be a good idea to be wrong about that?
Honestly, I really need to find this Rabbi Miller, because it really it proves my point.
Well, we just prove your point that you're not careful about what you say.
I'm sorry, Doooovid. Sorry.
Or you don't mind being wrong, so to say, about important things.
I don't believe I am wrong. I feel very, very confident I'm actually right.
Well, I believe you're confident that you're right, but that doesn't mean you're right. It doesn't mean there's enough advantage to your statement.
I need textual proof that I'm wrong.
Plus, why the assumption? Why the given assumption that if indeed he can provide a source of Rabbi Avigdor Miller saying this, why indeed does that make it correct? Aren't rabbis usually disputing each other on such things? Just saying.
Well, I have to see. Do you have a textual proof that there's a different opinion?
I mean,
Is there
I
so-
don't. I don't have a horse in this race one way or another.
Listen,
I'm enjoying this
oh my gosh,
scholarly
I have,
discussion.
oh my gosh, dude, I have something that will BTFO you.
All right, in a moment, I just wanted to show. See, when I do, on the rare occasions that I do actually go to synagogue or go to Jewish events, I have this one, which is kind of more of a fez.
It's irrelevant and unnecessary to your point. You're saying like, okay, you're convinced that you're special. Not only are you convinced you're special, you're convinced that other people are not special, and that
They're not special.
wasn't necessary. I mean, so you're saying your dad's not special?
Well, what about the Jewish soul? I mean, isn't there a certain portion of the soul that only we possess? A certain sort of spiritual capability, responsibility?
Yeah, I'm saying that God desired God desired certain service and created and chose the Jewish people to fulfill that service. But and the value statement and judgment may or may not be accurate, and then to be so certain about something that may or may not have an actual scriptural basis, it just seems.
Well, I want to read something here. This is the concise Sefer Chinuch. Sefer Chinuch is a Rishonic work, medieval source. It has the approbation of Rabbi Chaim. What's his Kanievsky Shlita. She live and be well. Admin Esrim. The pasuk says this is Parshat Va'et Hanan, page 280, mitzvah 426. The verse says, in the Hebrew says, "Velo tihanim," and you shall not show them any favor. Explanation: do not.
Whatever he's reading, but I'm saying, like, does that make a difference to you wearing a yarmulke, whether other people are not special? I'm saying you're wearing a yarmulke because you're special. Is that why you think, is that why you wear a yarmulke? No, I mean, the word itself means fear of God. You wear a yarmulke because you're scared of not properly serving your maker, not because you're special. So, I mean, the reason is intrinsically incorrect in the first place, let alone, adding onto it because you're special and other people aren't. So, I mean, I would dispute that there's no connection. You don't wear a yarmulke because you're special. You wear a yarmulke because you fear God and you want to distance yourself from sin. And, so when you have a false explanation like he's giving, and then you add on to the false explanation, like two false explanations. You're saying you do it because you're special, and not only you do it because you're special, you do it because other people are not special. So he basically just gave you two false reasons for wearing a yarmulke.
So I want to see what the Sefer Chinuch has to say about the mitzvah lo tichanim. You shall not show them any favor. The Sefer Chinuch writes, "Do not show any favor or mercy towards those who worship idols, and do not regard as admirable or correct even one thing that they do. Distance from your mind the slightest assumption, and never suggest verbally that one can learn or benefit from such people. Do not look upon idol worshippers as serving any useful purpose or as possessing any positive trait or quality. In fact, our sages taught that one is even forbidden to say about an idol worshipper that he is a nice or pleasant person. A corollary prohibition is that we are not allowed to give non-Jews gifts. We're not allowed to give Gentiles gifts for no reason. They have to have unless we can only do favors and kindness to goyim only for social reasons, to preserve our social status, and whatever is like considered socially normal. But going around doing random acts of kindness for the goyim is not what Yidden do. It's not what Yehudim do. Excuse me.
You just derived. You said that's the Sefer Chinuch. That says you're not allowed to do a kindness for a non-Jew.
Yeah, that's what it says.
Except to increase your own status.
Well, anyway, One violates dismissive by praising an idol worshiper when one's words do not imply greater praise for our nation. One's punishment is very great for the repercussions of such praise and can be such praise can be very grave and not be repaired because the praise might penetrate to a listener's heart, making him want to befriend the idol worshiper and do as he does. Actions are born of thoughts. After having a thought, a person will express the thought verbally, and eventually he acts upon this thought. Through the Torah's command to not think or speak positively about idol worshippers, we will stay far clear of them and never associate with them. We will never seek their affection nor learn it from anything that they do. Sefer Chinuch. This is by an anonymous author.
Yeah, and I don't even think that proved your point. We're talking about idol worshippers. I think even what you just read contradicts the point you're trying to make, and it just. I hate the rabbis that do that, like the Kira of the kind of like, oh, don't you know how special you are? To me that's a false. Like a false. It's like, why aren't you telling Babs that if he doesn't do it, he's going to burn in hell? Why aren't you telling Babs?
Yeah, he's gonna burn in hell. So are you if you're not completing observance. So am I. We're all gonna burn. We're all gonna burn.
Why aren't you telling him that whether he wants to do it or not, he's required to do it? I mean, yeah.
He is required to do it. I've been pushing him to be more religious, dude.
Yeah, I didn't really appreciate your. I'm in disagreement with your approach and even to your theology, but that's fine. Like you said it. That's my opinion. I'll say it.
Well, I am my own theocratic dictator.
Whatever, Church of Entropy. All right. Hold on. Give me a moment. I think that it's good. It's interesting to have two opinions, and what just took place there, that little interchange, I think is absolutely fascinating. I think from a secular family perspective, watching like Jews debate Talmud or Torah and employ their quotes and their knowledge their scholarship is absolutely, it's really incredible. So yeah, I just wanted to say again, thank you both for being here. And if either of you would like to take this conversation in any particular direction, the floor is absolutely yours. So.
Well, Passover's over. We got Spheres Oimer. Interesting things happening.
Yeah, indeed. I'm not playing music on the stream for that reason, because you're not allowed to play instrumental music, according to some interpretations I've read. So yeah, how are both of your Passovers, Doovid? You told me a little bit about, but now that it's over, do you have any thoughts, contemplations?
I didn't do anything too eventful, so in that respect, it was a nice holiday. Most of my celebration was by myself, but yeah, I did the ritual. I prayed in my local modern Orthodox synagogue. But yeah, nothing particularly eventful.
And Judas?
Yes.
How was your Passover, sir?
It was beautiful.
Glad to hear. Okay. So
And if you want to talk,
I'm so happy.
Judas, your audio quality is taking a plunge. Get those headphones off. Judas, get those headphones off. Your audio quality is terrible.
Every place I take just takes my breath away.
Judas, takes your headphones off. Judas, the audio is awful. Use a different headset. All right. So yeah, Doovid, you said, do you want something about talking Judaism?
Yeah, I guess the highlight was that 7-hour stream I did on intermarriage, and I spent a few weeks researching it, and I found all these articles, and I read them multiple times, and then when I did the stream and read them again, I think I understood it on a much profounder level, and now I'm researching a stream on conversion. So it was extremely interesting, this history of it. I found this one extremely interesting article on the history of intermarriage, going from Roman times to. Are you familiar with the Napoleon's Sanhedrin that he convened in
Yeah, vaguely.
1807?
Yeah, yes, but I'm not an expert.
Yes, there was a whole bunch of interesting things like the history of civil marriage and equal rights of Jews, and so it was just very interesting putting all these things together that I, largely known about, but tying the whole history, and I couldn't believe I did like a 7 hours of monologuing, but it was interesting, and like at some point I didn't even know if anyone was listening to me, but I was just so interested, I kept on going. Because I really just, I think I just wanted the truth for myself. And, the topics are interesting, because it relates, that's my situation, being a half Jew. And I noted some things that, I knew when I went to Israel, like, what's my status? Am I, a mamzer in the dispute in the Talmud, where the Talmud, disputes these things. And, I don't know if you want to talk about that, or if you want to talk about what I mentioned to you about biblical law. Like, are we descended from freed slaves? What would have been the case of Roman law, long times ago? And what is our true origins? I think we were discussing that on Twitter. Like the question of whether we're descended from freed slaves or not.
Yeah, and I mean, geneticists have looked into this for quite some time, and it's pretty much settled. Like Razib Khan himself says, it's pretty much settled that Ashkenazim descend, have a very significant amount of descent, originally probably from their maternal side, from what may have been Romans and who cluster close to Etruscans, as well as generally what assumed to have originally been on the paternal side, Middle Eastern ancestry, which Xue or whatever, XUE et al. Have recently mapped out, probably comes from the Levant. So that's probably something like Judea or Israel. And then there's European ancestry, which is largely Roman, which has been around for a long time. And I mean, there have been varying theories to explain where this comes from. There's been a source of some controversy within the field of genetics due to the political and religious ramifications.
Yeah, so if you look, the genetics are clear that the likelihood is we have a female European precursors going back over 1,000 years, and after that point there was very little intermarriage after that, and it could be that it's just one single female precursor. So when you say you're Ashkenazic, that means that at some point 1,000 to 1,500 years ago, our male progenitors married native Europeans, and since that very first intermarriage, there's basically been zero intermarriage since the modern era. Like, right? That's what the genetic evidence points to.
Yes. However, there have been some potential waves of intermarriage, which some say there's a very small component found only in some Ashkenazi Jews that's considered to come from somewhere further east. Not sure exactly where. Some say, oh, this is from, it's from Khazars, or it's from Huns, or it's from Cossacks. No one's exactly sure, or even from Chinese or something. No one even knows exactly.
It would have been a small amount,
and that's tiny.
God forbid, rape or intermarriage. Like my mother, who's 99.4% Ashkenazic Jewish, and if you look at the generations, that's really only enough for 2 intermarriages going back really like 3,000 years. Like I get my calculator here, but
Also, I just wanted to say, in addition to that, I think even larger than that, quote, more Eastern component, there is a Eastern European component, which is, something more like Slavic or Central European or something like that on top of that. And then even more recently, you have let's say, like not only after the Enlightenment, but the kind of post-industrial age, you had a lot of just intermixing in general. So it's common these days for people who identify as quote unquote Jew to, let's say, give a genetic sample, but they're, let's say half or something like that, and they mixed with a European somewhere along the way, and they identify that as Jewish. So there's a lot of different reports, but yeah, so there is a bit of more recent admixture, but generally what pops up as quote unquote Ashkenazi, like what the rubric identifies as such for a program like, let's say, 23andMe, what they're quantifying as quote Ashkenazi is basically that that kind of like Roman Hebrew hybrid with potentially a bit of Eastern European and maybe a little bit of other stuff thrown in.
Yeah,
so it's like, yeah, not much, but it's shockingly, it's not much more than 50 to 60% European after 2,000 years of being in Europe. So there's still a very strong kind of, West Asian presence, like Levantine, Near Eastern, Middle Eastern. But go ahead, do it.
Pretty high content with 99.4, but I mean, that really only leaves room for one or at most two intermarriages in the whole period of 2,000 years. But so what's the origin of that female precursor? So my research, looking at the history of intermarriage. So I think for the Edict of Milone or whatever, I have it in my report. I'd have to look it up. But in 339, it was actually Roman law made it illegal for a Jew to marry a Christian. The punishment was actually death. So you're saying, who was that European female precursor that our ancestors would have married? And if you look at the actual biblical law, it was likely slaves. So there's multiple corresponding evidences to point to the likelihood that the original male Jews that went into Europe were probably only males. There are probably no females, and they probably purchased slaves. And when they freed the slaves became Jews, and they married them, and that's or they were concubines. And once the concubines were free, their children became Jews, because if that's the way the biblical law worked at the time, and the corresponding Roman law, like Pope Gregory, Constantine. Has to make laws to forbid Jews from doing this. So it's likely, like, why would Pope Gregory and Charlemagne have been making laws to forbid Jews from doing this? Because that was our practice at the time, that Jewish businessmen, travelers, slaves were very popular then. It would have been illegal for a Jewish man to marry a Roman woman. So I mean, it wouldn't have been likely that the precursor, a European woman, would have been a Roman citizen. In fact, it's almost unlikely it would have been punishable by death for a Jew to do that. However, a Jew could have purchased a pagan slave, and the Jewish law at the time would have meant that if he purchased a female slave, that when she was freed, eventually, she would become a Jew. And so that was my likelihood. And I don't know if there's that much critical scholarship on it. But if you look at the historical evidence, the genetic evidence, the Roman laws, the pagan laws, the Jewish law, it seems that that's the most likely case of the origin of Ashkenazic Jewish blood. So if you're an Ashkenazic Jew, it's likely that your European blood comes from a pagan slave that when she was freed became a Jew.
Yeah, I mean, that meshes with the genetic data that I've seen so far, and it's all, yeah.
Meshes with I'm combining the genetic data, the Roman law, and the Jewish law.
Yeah, I mean, I would personally, I'm not an expert on Roman historic law, but from the years and years of reading genetic studies on the topic, hearing what a lot of different genetics experts have to say, I would give you a full green light to go ahead with advancing that theory. I think you might be on the mark. Judas, do you have any thoughts?
I want to read this thing with the glow in the track.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. So Judas was, before you came on, he was planning on reading a short excerpt about golems. My mother recently was at an education conference in Prague, and she bought me a small golem with the word Emet in its chest, truth. So, yeah, Judas, yeah, you can go ahead and read a passage on that.
So
And
this Torah learning is in the merit of
Judas, but you
Babylon,
need to improve
yeah?
your audio quality. Judas, you need to improve your audio quality. So take your headset off. All right.
You can't
Yeah.
fix Mike until he fixes his mic.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm doing the research now on the history of conversion.
Sounds good. Yeah, I think you should go more on that because I managed to watch a portion of your stream. Wasn't able to watch it all live,
All right, I
but
fixed it.
yeah, okay, good. I wasn't able to watch it all.
I mean, because most of it is just me reading the paper, and I link the paper and link that you can just read those if you want.
Yeah, I took a
All
look at
right,
your
I can read
sources
this now.
and whatnot, and sometimes people have a bit of a hard time looking at the genetic data, and there is dispute even within the genetic data. Like for instance, Doron Behar. Doron Behar argues for a stronger Near Eastern pole, whereas someone like Avishalom Zusman Diskin argues for a stronger European pole. But generally, the consensus is pretty much in. And yeah, I enjoyed the stream from what of it I watched, and I haven't gotten through all the articles yet, but I looked briefly at some of the genetic sources that you were going by.
Before you start reading, I'll just say quickly the direction. This is mostly Israeli scholarship, actually. The Torah scholarship would disagree. The sages don't like this interpretation, but they say that conversion. There used to be no such thing as conversion. It used to be that you became a Jew. It was purely through intermarriage. That if you married a Jew and you stayed within the Jewish community, the kids were Jewish, regardless of conversion. I mean, possibly due to the structure of society, and that conversion doesn't come around until the Second Temple period. Some people think that it came in Ezra's time, just like matrilineal descent, where most people think that you didn't have matrilineal descent until Ezra. But the Israeli scholars today don't believe that that's the case. They think matrilineal descent actually comes during the Roman time, and it corresponds to Roman law. And the same thing with conversion, that there was actually no such thing as conversion in the Torah. You converted by marrying a Jew, and that was basically it. You couldn't convert to Judaism, and if you married a Jew, you became a Jew whether you converted or not. And then the conversion process comes around in the Roman period, and so both of those are the direction of Israeli scholarship. The sages don't agree with that approach. The sages will kind of say, like, the system we have now is the system we've always had, even though the historical and even Torah scriptural evidence points differently, and they'll say, really Moses' wife converted just like the converts do today, and so on and so on. So it's interesting that I'm not even talking like Shlomo Sand type scholarship. I'm saying the conventional respected Israeli scholarship is taking a much different direction.
Yeah, empirically verifiable genetic research that mainstream researchers from around the world, coming from Chinese backed research, Lebanese backed research, etc., is all coming to the same conclusion here. This is apolitical. There's nuance taken into account here.
Whether people converted or not is hard for the genetics to show. You just showed that there was intermarriage.
Yeah. But then the nature of that genetics and the interpretation. Yeah.
Was there an actual process, or even like the matrilineal, patrilineal? So you have archaeological evidence, and even because the Israeli scholars read Hebrew and they've looked at the sages and they've seen, well, why did the sages change their mind? Because you can clearly see in the Talmud and the different texts that they changed their mind at some point. So the rabbis and the sages have used extreme pilpul to say, no, they never changed their mind. They always said the same thing, even though pretty clearly, according to the text, they changed. So they have the corresponding like Roman law, the different law systems of the secular systems, archaeology, that the sages wouldn't value. But if you look at it from a scholarly perspective, it takes an interesting approach. And so the conversion I'm going to include the sages and the progression of the law and the Rambam and like the type stuff that Judas reads. But I'm also going to include the modern secular scholarship that includes Roman law, and it takes a different perspective on that. And like I study Talmud, I go to the rabbis. In the Talmud, it says the rabbis knew all about idol worship. They knew the Roman law. They knew the Greek laws. They were supposed to speak like 70 languages. But most modern rabbis, they don't give a crap. Like they go and they'll tell us some of the Talmud and like, Margulis, that's Mercury. Like it corresponds with, this thing and this thing in the Roman history. And, so very few people learn Talmud like that these days. But I think, there could be a revival and a new path forward in even Jewish, sort of called Orthodox scholarship with, the increase in scholarship. But, I don't know, Judas, can preach his sages and, call out my blasphemy if that's what he wants to do.
Yeah, well, I think that
Blasphemy is saying, like, just drop out of university, recognize your parents are worthless sinners and everything they told you is basically worthless, and repent and recognize that Doooovid is the worthless heretic causing you problems.
Can I read my thing now?
Well, he reads you like B-level Jewish scholarship that's been translated in English.
all right, hold on. Okay. So
this book is magic, mystery.
Wait, hold on, Judas.
Okay, B-level or level, like low-tier Orthodox Jewish scholarship, written.
What you're telling me that these aren't the most famed texts of Orthodoxy, mysteries and mysticism?
I mean, basically, like no-name Orthodox rabbi writing books in English.
Page 59.
I use the rest.
Rabbi.
Him read his. Go ahead.
Oh, hold on one moment.
Rabbi.
Doooovid, if you'd like to use the restroom, go ahead. But I do have a response to what you said earlier a moment ago. So, but yeah, Judas, go ahead, interlude, and then back to us.
Sefer Yisir was clear to him from the time that Rabbi Chaim Volozhin wrote the following about his teacher, the Vilna Gaon. Sefer Yitzir was clear to him from the time that he was a child. Sefer Yitzir is a book of Kabbalah, with the utmost clarity and depth. When discussing a certain section of Sefer Yitzir with him, I mentioned that according to what he was saying, it would not be such a great undertaking to create a golem. He explained that he once began creating a golem. However, in the middle of the process, a certain image passed over his head from which he understood that he should not continue because he was too young. I asked him how old was he at the time, and he told me he was not yet 13 years old. Therefore, it would come as no surprise if he were to hear the Vilna Gaon create a golem. On the other hand, he would have no reason to assume that any particular Torah scholar, including the Vilna Gaon, didn't create one unless there was reliable evidence of such. There is indeed such documentation about certain great people as we already mentioned. This brings us to the topic of the Golem of Prague, the golem that was allegedly created by the great 16th century Torah giant, the Maharal. The Golem of Prague is definitely the most celebrated of all golems. It is well known among the religious and even the Gentile world. Secular media in all languages have drawn attention to the phenomenon of this golem and has saved the Jewish populace from blood libels or other threats. Prague itself has become a world-famous tourist attraction in great part due to the attic where the golem is said to be lying, as well as the burial site of the Maharal. However, closer investigation reveals that the matter is not so simple. Let's begin with the evidence that remained from the time of the lifetime of the Maharal himself. The Maharal wrote prolifically. He wrote commentaries on the Torah, Talmud, Jewish holidays, and a wide range of topics in Jewish thought and philosophy. Yet there is no hint about a golem in any of his works. Indeed, we are not aware of anyone who lived during the Maharal's time, Jewish or others, making any reference to the golem of Prague in writing. On the Maharal's gravestone, a very large epitaph neglected any mention of it. This is odd if one considers that one allegedly rescued entire communities from pogroms. One of the Maharal's greatest students, the Tzemach David, wrote a history book. This includes a biography of his illustrious teacher. Yet the Tzemach David did not find it worth mentioning that his teacher had created a golem. In latter generations, evidence for the Maharal's gold is still noticeable, noticeably absent. The Chida authored a book called Shem HaGedolim, which consists of biographies of great people throughout Jewish history. The Chida notes that Rabbi Eliyahu Baal Shem created a golem, as we have mentioned earlier. Yet, when discussing the Maharal Prague, the Chida makes no mention of any such thing. So we confirmed Rabbi Eliyahu Baal Shem, 1550 to 1583, created a golem. Rabbi Yedida Weil lived in Prague a little more than 100 years after the death of Maharal. Both his illustrious father, the Korban Netanel, as well as teacher Rabbi Yonatan Ebeshwitz, also lived in Prague. Rabbi Weil writes that there were golems created close to his lifetime, and he gives two examples: the golems created by Rabbi Eliyahu Baal Shem and that of Rabbi Avigdor Korah, who died in 1439. He does not mention any golem created by the Maharal. So there's not this another one. Rabbi Avigdor Korah created a golem. Confirmed by Rabbi Weil. It seems likely that the Maharal never created a golem. Where then did this rumor spread from? In truth, the first printed mention of Maharal's golem was in the newspaper in the mid-1830s, more than 220 years after the Maharal's death. How could a little news story respond to such worldwide legend? The answer is a book titled Niflaot HaMaharal, The Wonders of the Maharal. Niflaot HaMaharal was published in 1909. It contains many stories about the Maharal's golem, most of which have never appeared before. The book became a sensation and was reprinted in numerous languages throughout the world. In his introduction, the publisher wrote that the book was copied from a manuscript that was hidden in the Royal Library of Metz. He claimed that the entire work was written by the Maharal's son-in-law, the Mahari Katz.
You think
All right.
Rabbi Stephen Weil, who excommunicated Luke Ford and met with President Trump, and now it's
Is he a descendant?
Even the Rabbi Weil who excommunicated Luke Ford when he was just a synagogue rabbi in Los Angeles went on to become the head of the Orthodox Union. So I don't know. Next time I see Rabbi Weil, I'll have to ask him if he's descended from that Yehuda Weil.
Yeah, that would be fascinating.
Or the billionaire Sandy Weil. I don't know, they not closely related, but from Citigroup or I forget the history, but there's a wealthy billionaire, Sandy Weil.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of those relations go really far back with some of those family names. A lot of times they were just people who adopted the same name due to the German census. But at the same time, there are also a lot of, just people who do actually happen to be related. Like, I know I'm related distantly, like generations and generations back to some pretty crazy people. Yeah.
Progenitor that, had thousands and thousands of offspring that, generations later maybe went on to accomplish things.
Yeah. Yeah,
What did you
exactly.
think, Babs? My golem stories.
I think that's interesting. I think the concept of golems has always fascinated me, and I showed you the one that my mother got me because she knows that I like the concept. Doovid, do you have any thoughts on the golem? And also, go ahead. After that, though, I would like to discuss conversion because I know that both of you are part, not of Hebrew descent, and now even we're talking about how many Ashkenaz. Yeah, and now he's talking about how many Ashkenazim themselves may be descendants of Roman slaves who were converted through the religion. So it's a fascinating topic that I don't think there's a lot of controversy surrounding it, and it's a good, interesting thing to discuss because both of you probably have more open minds. But Doovid, go ahead about the golem.
Well, it could also be in biblical law. I'm saying that even to non-Ashkenazic, it could be all Jews. These laws are mentioned in the Bible. So the original Jews that conquered Israel right after leaving Egypt may have also taken non-Jewish concubines and turned them into Jews. Because those laws are clearly written in the Bible.
Yeah, but what about the fact there's Ashkenazi Kohanim and Levim?
Well, you could still be a Kohen because of the convert's daughter. Is if the woman converted properly, and then she can't marry a Kohen, but her daughter could marry a Kohen. So
Really?
over tens of generations, yeah, all the Ashkenazic Kohanim and Levium will probably have this convert blood in them, just like the Khazar blood. So even if only 2% of the current Ashkenazic um, population, is Khazar, but through 1,000 years of intermarriage, it's likely that we all share, a little bit of Khazar blood, because if you look at wherever the Khazars moved to, the ones that had successfully converted, if they acclimated and intermarried with the community over 1,000 years, it's likely that the majority of the community would have share some blood with them.
No, the Khazarian kingdom was real.
Yeah, I'm saying to say
that kingdom of Jewish converts, that they were real, and some of them did continue being Jewish after they were conquered.
Yeah, I've heard reasonable estimates to say that like 2% of Ashkenazic blood is Khazarian.
I believe it.
Yeah,
they don't
some
look
small
like
trace amounts. It's fascinating.
2% is not trace. I mean, 2% is noticeable. It's not trace. Trace amount would be like 0.0 something or point.
Okay, yeah. Well, perhaps not trace amounts, but what I'm talking about is amount. It's not a bulk of the ancestry. Which when we're looking at that, we're looking at components that are more like Roman instead, which makes up something like in the tens of percentiles of ancestry, possibly as much as 40%.
Did you ever go to Beth Jacob, Matisyahu in LA?
I've been there, yeah.
Did you know Rabbi Weil when he was there and excommunicated?
No, I never talked to him.
But you know what I'm talking about?
Not really.
Luke says the story that when he first came, it was like Death Jacob, and it was a really like out of control synagogue, and he threw out 70 people. Luke was one of them for sexual harassment. Luke got thrown out he said himself, for sexual harassment that he had made unwanted advances and even groping upon a woman, and therefore got thrown out. But that Rabbi Weil came in and he threw out 70 degenerates from Beth Jacob, including Luke, and cleaned up the synagogue, turned it into one of the most prosperous synagogues in LA. Does that sound right?
What did the 70 degenerates do?
Luke didn't say. He just said what he did. That's why I'm asking if you know more about it. I only know what I read on Luke's blog and what he said on his show.
I don't know anything about it.
Yeah, well, what were your experiences like with?
What?
What were your experiences like meeting Mr. Ford?
One time I was at a Shabbaton.
He's already told the story 10 times. You only met him once or that time, and you've already said it like 10 times.
What, the Shabbaton story?
Yeah. Is that your only story?
I didn't tell the Babs.
You haven't heard him say that story, Babs? Like he said, like.
So I was at there was a Shabbaton in my neighborhood at the Jewish center, Jewish Family Center, where it's like a congregation of like Persian Karaites and their families, and a Chabad Persian rabbi who's very questionable. Anyway, so I went to the Shabbaton, and the Shabbaton was dedicated to Luke, and he was the main speaker for some reason, and he said some embarrassing stuff about like how. Like in this room full, like the rabbi, he had a back and forth with the rabbi's daughter during his what
year was this?
Speech. This was in 2013.
So like when Rabbi Weil excommunicated him, Chabad took him in.
Perhaps. Yeah, it was
typical.
Summer 2013.
Chabad, the shul of last resort. Judas and Chabad, the shul of last resort.
So and he was saying how like, oh, Luke was saying, oh yeah, people who are religious aren't necessarily more moral, and then the rabbi saw was like, oh yeah, well, if you're like stealing and cheating in business, I think there's something wrong with the way you keep kosher. Yep.
Rabbi Weil, Luke writes on his blog that he had a close friend that was a businessman who cheated in business and got thrown out of Beth Jacob for that also. And they say Rabbi Weil actually slapped him, and he took him to court over it. Like, he came over like, you're not wanted here in synagogue anymore. You're a cheat. You're a thief. And the guy talked back, and Rabbi Weil slapped him, and he took him to court. It's on his blog. And this guy's like Luke's best friend.
Doooovid, I think you're NSA. Are you NSA?
I don't know what that is.
National Security.
Yeah, exactly what an NSA agent would say. No, but yeah, Doooovid, it's some pretty nuts stuff. I think that,
blog, I'm saying, like, I read that on the blog.
Yeah, no. I mean, and I've generally begun to work my way through it, but I'm not a speed reader like you. I'm 13th% processing speed, so it takes me a bit longer, and I have a lot of stuff to do, especially lately. I've been working. So I don't know. I'm curious on the subject of conversions. If you have any, if either of you have any thoughts that you'd like to share, or the topic of the golem.
Yeah, people
if you
shouldn't
guys
convert.
want to talk more about
It's a
that.
bad idea.
Yeah, I don't really care so much about the golem. I mean, we don't talk conversion. I don't really care about the golem. I mean,
Yeah, I mean it's a neat little thing, but it's not exactly a central issue. There are more important things to discuss right now.
and conversion's not so central to us either. Well, you could talk to half Jew and saying like,
conversion is actually pretty central in the sense that there are a lot of quote half Jews, and there are more and more and more because there's so many people who are Jews or half Jews themselves out marrying. I know in New York City, I see a lot of half Jews around me all the time.
Well, you're probably the majority. You probably see more of them than you do 100% Jews.
Yeah, in some environments that's the case. There's people in my age bracket because people in my parents' age bracket were all about getting outside of tradition.
Yeah, intermarriage is like 70%, so that means the majority of it is half or less, especially adulting. Like it's like I met. I mean, you're probably like a minority being full Jew there.
No, totally, absolutely, and I mean, with the next generation probably will mean a lot more quarter Jews, but these people still often have some sort of, albeit somewhat tenuous, relationship to the Jewish people or Judaism.
Yeah, especially with people with Jewish fathers and non-Jewish mothers.
With women from East Asia, sorry, you were saying, or European women.
But the demographic change, where historically, in modern times, the majority of conversion is related to intermarriage. So either partners of intermarried people or the children of